We have an issue. One standard kickstart, one lowered scooter, and it won't go on. Before we start looking at possible solutions, I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the exact issues we're facing here. This is a standard kickstart for a series 1 or 2 Lambretta, and if you notice, it's got a piece that sticks out here, and that basically hits on the side of the crankcase. I'll pull the side panel off, and so that goes onto there. I'm no expert, but that stop there on the side of the crankcase cover is to stop the kickstart repeatedly coming up and snapping off the stop with inside the crankcase. Super easy thing to do would just be to cut a bigger hole in this panel. If I made this huge, great big hole there, there'd be no issue with that, but obviously I like the look of that and I don't want a massive great hole in my side panel. So I'm looking at other options. Now, when I mentioned the issue of the kickstart a few episodes ago, I had loads of comments about people saying, oh, just fit a folding kickstart, easy, but that doesn't get over that problem of that kickstart coming up too high and then snapping something inside. So that's no good, the folding kickstart, I'm afraid. I also had some comments saying electric start. Well, I think that would be mega money. So I'm looking for an easier engineering solution, and this is what I've come up with. Kickstart fits on here, and this part that sticks out goes underneath there. There's a rubber stop there, and there it's actually quite badly fitting. The bit that sticks out is supposed to hit underneath this rubber stop on the crankcase cover. When I try and fit the panel back on again, you can see, yeah, it doesn't go anywhere near fitting because that gets in the way. This needs to go on here. I need to chop this off, and then I think there's just about enough room that I could weld on a piece of metal which kind of scoots behind the panel there and then picks up that stop inside. So I'm going to make it out a little bit of cardboard to start with, and we'll see if it's going to work, and then I think that's going to be the solution. Using CAD, that's cardboard aided design, got this bit of cardboard roughly cut out and bent so it would weld onto the kickstart here, closely follow the crankcase, and then that bit would, you know, kind of replicate what the existing kickstart does and fit under that bump stop. It's kind of my idea, and then this obviously needs to follow the crankcase tightly round because it needs to fit up inside the panel there. So, well, it needs to be welded on as close to here as possible. So I'm going to start cutting this out a piece of metal. I might actually use a bit of angle iron because it'll have this lip kind of already built in, and then heat it up and bend that round to shape roughly. From cardboard, very roughly chopped out this piece of angle iron. Next I'm going to heat this up in the vise and try and bend it in a nice curve, see if we can get somewhere close. And obviously I'll make this all look pretty and tidy it up and put some curved edges on it. I've just bent a bit of welding rod just to give me the rough angle that I need to go in there as well, so I don't have to keep bringing over a red hot piece of metal. So let's take it to the vise and heat it up, see if we can bend it. That is red hot at the moment, but it's not doing too bad. That's my bit of welding wire. So I'm just going to wait for that to cool down a little bit, and we'll offer it up, see how far out we are. And then just offering it up here, it's still red hot, but that's not too bad. Just need to chop off a little bit, like 10mm off this end, and that's looking pretty good. I think while I'm waiting for that to cool down, I'm just going to grind off the chrome plating off this kickstart and see what we got there. I've offered this bit up, it is still a little bit warm. You can see it follows that engine quite tight. There is clearance there, and I'm hoping there'll be enough clearance here for that panel to sit around. So I think I'm going to throw a couple of tacks on there, then I can cut off this original part of the kickstart, and we can offer up the panel, see if it's going to work. Just going to whip this off quickly and get a couple of more tack welds on that before I cut this section off. Right, time to chop this original piece off, no turning back now. So I cut off the offending part of the original kickstart, and I've just thrown the kickstart with my crazy contraption back on the scooter, and this is the moment of truth. Was that a great idea or a terrible idea? Will the panel fit? Oh yeah, that is so good. Still got a few mil to trim off this panel as well to make it symmetrical, but yeah, I'll bring you in for a closer look. There's the new bit I welded on there. It's got a good 5mm or so, and I am going to just trim this bit of the panel down a little bit. So now I think I'm just going to cycle this back end up and down, just make sure it's still not hitting. I'll tell you what is hitting. That is this footboard. When the body lifts up, it is just hitting there. So I think I'm going to need to just heat this bit up here and just put a little bit more of a kick here and probably kick this one back in a little bit. So I made another welding wire kind of idea of where that's got to go. So it needs to bend out more here, and then obviously that will then need to be bent back in on that. So I'm just going to whip this off again, and yeah, we're trying to heat up this area. Whoa, I have heated and bent this kickstart so many times that you wouldn't believe, but I think I've pretty much got it there now. Not sure how well it's going to get picked up on camera, but if you can see all this discoloration, this is all the places I've heated the kickstart there. And if you're familiar with the shape of a kickstart, it's not a lot like that. So I've got a really sharp bend here to avoid the footboard there, and then it straightens out. I've got a little bit of a wiggle there, I don't really care, and it's quite close to the leg board there. But I think part of the problem that was happening is because obviously this on a standard scooter would be, you know, way down below there, and I think the angle of the engine where it's gone up into the frame or body so much, yeah, this was just hitting here. And then so I did, obviously I angled that out, but then the kickstart sort of came at a really weird daft angle, so yeah, I've had to shape it all again pretty much. It's been on and off at least a dozen times, I reckon, but this bit is sitting really nicely. And because I kept heating this metal, this is obviously a solid chunk of metal, and my welder would not normally weld very well to something this chunky, but while the metal was nice and hot, I got a really good weld on both sides of this custom part that I built here, and that's working really well. We'll see now when I lift the body up, you can see that it's missing. And like I say, this is probably tucked in a bit more than standard, but yeah, at least it doesn't stick out too far on the scooter. And the kickstart looks in a bit of a state now. It was brand new, and to be honest, I could have just used the original one, which is for a Series 3, because I had to bend it to shape anyway, but here's what it is. I'm going to pull it off now and deburr it, because it's pretty battered. It's been in the vice a load of times. I've hit it with a hammer, put a big wrench on it, etc. And obviously it's had a bit of welding done. So I'm going to give it a clean up, maybe use some of that chrome in a spray can. It'll be alright for now anyway, and we'll stick it back on the scooter. And there we have the finished article, bolted back on. That chrome is not the best. Some of these marks are actually quite deep in here where I was beating the thing into shape, but that's fine. It's going to add to the vibe of it. I think it'll look like it's aged. You can see where this hits there now. It hits on the rubber stop. And there is the panel and kickstart fitted. You can see here my little customization adaptation thing. It just clears in there, but I really like the look of that. As they say, the proof is in the pudding, and there's a couple of tests I want to do. First, I want to raise the back end up just to make sure that panel doesn't hit at all. It's very close there. And the second thing is, once it's at ride height, I just want to check the kickstart is going to work without hitting this footboard, etc. So got my little shop compressor hooked up, and there's the airbag. So let's just test this going up and down. Whee! That's so cool. Try and let it go down at a bit of a slower rate. Here we go. That's pretty good. So I'll put the front end on some blocks there, and the back end is aired up. So it's roughly at ride height now, because I want to just test this kickstart is going to work. I just quickly pulled out the spark plug so there's less compression there, but that's pretty good. So I'm super pleased with the outcome of this kickstart. It was the elephant in the room for a while, but we've got over that issue now. I really do appreciate all those comments and suggestions you had for the kickstart. Again, the electric start option, I think I looked, it was over £1,000. And actually, you know what, I kind of like having a kickstart on there. It adds to the whole sleeper kind of vibe I'm going for on this scooter. When you see it driving down the road, you know, it looks almost original and standard, and then it airs out. That's kind of what I'm going for. I'm really pleased to have this kickstart back on there. And of course the kickstart's another element to actually make the scooter functional, a bit like the fuel tank, fuel system sorted out now. The electrics are nearly there. So I know this is another short video, but as I mentioned on a previous video, the building work outside is kicking off, so I'm having to spend quite a bit of time on that. But I am just going to try and do a weekly episode on either the SLAMBRETTA or the hot rod. It's just one step closer, got a little bit done, try and do a little bit each week. But I do want to thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It just will let you know when a future video comes out. And yeah, if you can give us a like or leave us a comment, that's really appreciated too. We do have merchandise for sale, t-shirts, etc., which we ship all around the world. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.